Hey everyone, welcome to the pilot episode of the Connor and Joe show. So we're going to do these little episodes once a week, and we've got a bit of a structure planned. So we're going to start the week off. Connor and I are going to discuss wins and losses from our farm from the previous week. We're going to have a little segment called From the Field, where we take a topic, whether it's from our social media or from the internet, so just social media in general, on a ag topic, and Connor and I are going to have a bit of a discussion. And then kind of what we're most looking forward to is each week we're going to bring on a guest. That could be an industry expert, a farmer with some interesting opinions. They're going to give us their hottest or most controversial take, ag take that they have. Connor and I will not have heard the take before, so they're going to hit us with their controversial take, defend it, or give us reasoning for 2 or 3 minutes, and then the three of us are going to discuss. So to kick things off, I'm going to turn it over to Connor. Tell us about your wins and losses on the farm this week.
Yeah, so fairly good week. I guess I'll kick things off. Winter is set in, so that would be my loss.
That was going to be mine.
The general battle that brings some -25 nights, but plugging along okay. Getting some winter water systems firing this week, so that has been the biggest struggle this week, is just transitioning from some semi-permanent water systems that are needing a little bit more work every day when it's getting this cold, and transitioning into some new systems that should be frost proof for the winter, but we'll find out that soon. I guess
Winter will test you though, won't it?
soon. I guess my win for the week, I had a virgin cow buy in June, starting on a sell buy journey on this group. I've done a little bit of that before, but this was definitely the initial buy-in, and was able to get those cows sold this past week, and they got on a truck 2 days ago, and got a phone call from the buyer last night after they'd been there for a day, saying how happy he was with them. That was a tremendous feeling, going through that process and having some success there, and very happy with condition and the quietness of those cows. That was a really good feel good of the week, and was able to execute on that cow trade, and be in a position here to hop into some undervalued animals very soon. So yeah.
So 2 follow-ups, Connor. When you were making the purchase, what was the idea? What were you wanting to spend? What were you hoping to get out of it? And then I think a more interesting question is, now you've made your sell, what's your buy looking like today?
Yeah, so bought in end of June, start of July. I was planning to a little bit earlier, but things just got pushed back closer to July, on some breeding type open cows. So we brought them in end of June, start of July, put them with a bull instantly, drip grazed them on cover crops, and then the goal was to be able to move those as breds. I was hoping for a 50% breed up on those cows, buying in at.
What did you get?
I got a 94%, which was unbelievable. And I mean, every group of animals isn't going to be like that, but we just got lucky with this group. I think we did see quite a high percentage that were bred on arrival, that we didn't really know until till later in the fall when we did preg check. So that helps the percentage out a lot, and sale price was a couple $100 higher than what I was hoping to in my projection in the spring. So I mean, there was a few things that come together, but I think there's a lot of potential even with some more controlled numbers. Maybe not as inflated as I did see this go around, but right now I'd been picking away buying more opens this fall to put with a bull, and they got to a point they were too high for my liking on a dollar value side of things. Looks like the market's kind of straightened out now and trending upwards again, which is just such a volatile market. It's pretty amazing to be a part of. But yeah, I'm looking right now. There's probably some. I don't mind picking away at the late calving, kind of first trimester cows right now. I think there's some value to be bought into them, and so we'll see what happens here over the next couple of weeks, coming closer to Christmas.
Nice. Well, hopefully I did something similar this fall to what Connor did this spring. So hopefully 6 months from now, I'm talking about the exact same win. So my losses this week, I didn't mean for this to be the controversial topic, but my neighbor called me. He had a bull that had its head stuck in a bale feeder, which have rather strong opinions about bale feeders. And of course, most people that are watching this know I'm a bale grazer. We risked our lives getting that bull's head out of that feeder. And the next morning I went out to the feedlot to check the waters, and I had a calf that was stuck in there overnight that did not make it. So I pulled every bale feeder out of our corrals and bush, and I had a buddy come by yesterday and offer me $300 for everything. So our farm is going bale feeder free for the foreseeable future. I hope, honestly, forever, and we're not going back, because it seems like every year we lose an animal or two to that. getting stuck in there. It's not pretty. If you can actually cut them out and get them out of there, incredibly dangerous. And just with the price of livestock now, it's if you're losing one a year, you got to waste a lot of feed for that bale feeder to pay for itself again. So that's my loss for the week, but hoping in the long term that's a win. My win for the week, and it's not really for the week. We bought this truck a couple months ago, but we're really seeing the value in it now. We bought a bale deck truck, which I know for the Saskatchewan and Alberta producers that are watching this, this is just a common thing. But when I was looking to buy one, you couldn't even find one in Manitoba. So I'm a new dad. I've got a month-old daughter, and my favorite time of the day, we fire up the bale deck truck about 6 a.m. We go and supplement feed 3 or 4 bales in the morning time. It takes an hour. Didn't have to fire up a tractor, get my daughter riding beside me, hopefully sound asleep. And 3 different sites we can supplement feed. Even if I have to do them all in a day, we're done in like an hour or just over an hour. So what an unbelievable time saver and cost savings, not having to fire a tractor up like we were yesterday morning. It was 28 below, and I don't imagine, 28 with the wind chill, and I don't imagine my 4430 was going to be firing up. That's my win for the week, Connor.
I hope that wind keeps going, but unfortunately, I know we do get a lot of snow in February, so we'll see. See, that's, I guess, my pushback on the bale deck. I would love one as well, but gosh, I think I need something with a blade. Otherwise, the tractor's having to get fired up to push a path, and that night after that path gets pushed, the wind's gonna blow and fill it right in even harder.
Well, I promise you that when we do get enough snow, I can't use my bale deck truck. That'll be my loss for this segment because it will be devastating. It's so much nicer driving that thing around than a 4430 John Deere. Oh, I think we'll get into our next segment. It's the From the Field segment. So we're going to take a picture or piece of content from the internet, ag related, and then Connor and I are going to have a discussion about it. So for this week, our Northern Territory manager, Chance Rothwell, was feeding hay, and he rolled out 2 cover crop bales, 2, I think they were first cut hay bales, and then snapped this picture. So Connor, I know you've had similar experiences. Obviously, I've been screwing around with cover crops for, longer than a decade now. And we've seen similar things. So we had lots of questions in the comment section. You want to take a stab at maybe addressing a few and just what you've seen on your own farm?
Yeah, so I seen very similar things here last fall at our place. We were setting out some bales for cow-calf pairs prior to weaning last year, and seen very similar effects. We'd take a trailer load of hay and set it out, and then a trailer load of cover crop, and the picture was pretty much the exact same as you could see here. I know one of the questions, or a couple, I know the guy that was commenting there, Adam, was talking a little bit about the quality that he was seeing on a feed test this year on his full season, and I just commented back saying I seen very similar things to what he is seeing. We did a feed test, just probing the bales. There were dry bales, just as Chance is using right here. We cut that crop at an earlier state to try and achieve high protein, higher quality feed source. When we feed tested it, it came back at about 8% protein, and I was like, oh, that is not ideal. I was really shooting for something quite a bit higher to be a much more desirable bale. But when we got feeding it, like, you could visually see cows wanting to go for one over the other. And I never did test the hay. Probably should have, but I don't feed test much of anything, right, wrong, or indifferent. But when we got into weaning time, I had sent another feed test away to a different company, and it came back. I guess this was after we had weaned, because we had weaned in second week of January, and we weaned the calves onto cover crop bales. And they were eating them very good, but then going to the straw pack to consume straw. And I mean, these were dry bales, so there was enough roughage in that bale from what I thought. And that initial feed test said 8% protein. So I'm like, well, it's not even enough for what they're needing. We were planning to supplement with split peas to get them up to that 12 to 14% protein. But their manure was loose, and they were going to the straw pack to pick straw, which, I mean, calves generally do anyways. But we sent another feed test away, and it came back at 13% protein. So it just goes to show, like, the feed testing, I think there's a value in it, but we're at a point right now, it's valuable on a monocrop setting where you're testing consistency in the feed. Feed testing these diverse cover crop mixes, it is going to be so hard. Like in that initial feed test, did I get any peas? In that initial feed test, did I just get a bunch of oat and barley stems? Like it's so hit and miss. What did I get? I took 20 or 30 samples out of like 60 bales and sent it away. But at the end of the day, who knows what I really hit? There's 15 species in that full season crop. So the eye test is the best test that I can say. Yes, use the feed test as a supplementary discussion point, I guess, to kind of see where things are at. But the cow is going to tell you what's going on in that feed source. So I did ask Adam, and he hadn't got into his bales yet, but I said, well, once you get into them, like, see. And maybe if the cows are stacking, if they're, I mean, a dry cow will be just fine with where he was at. But if it's a young growing animal and their manure is stacking, yeah, it probably is a touch lower in protein than you were hoping for. But it's usually very interesting when you dive into it to actually see what the animal's telling you.
Well, and
Probably very similar, Joe, on your place.
big time. I mean, and we get lots of, I'll say, learning opportunities about feed tests just because, somebody samples a feed test. Maybe it's not what's the word I'm looking for? It's not sampled up against the right data set. And yeah, so quite honestly, what we generally do that fixes it 95% of the time is resample, make sure we're getting a good sample, lots of bales, and then make sure we're testing up against small grains. We had a producer, a good friend of mine in Drumheller this year, had an unbelievable cover crop. He sent me pictures all summer long, and this thing was a banger. Like, it was just gorgeous. The exact diversity that you want to achieve. And he feed tested and it was like 9%, and he was super disappointed. I said, there's just no possible way. I saw pictures of that crop all summer that I mean, there were legumes there. There was just all the diversity that you wanted to see. He did an amazing job growing that. I said, so I sent Connor's brother down, Brendan. They did a retest, sent it away, tested it against the small grains, and it was 13.5% protein. Just the gorgeous feed. But like Connor said, most people have heard me talk about soil tests, that they are good information, but they're imperfect. Not all the information's there. I think people should look at a feed test the same way. And I always say the best feed tester is the cow that's going to eat it. And I was going to say 9 times out of 10, but 10 times out of 10, when you're giving an animal biomass that's made up of multiple different plant species, generally they're going to choose that first. Like, we do 3-week bale grazing pods, always very diverse. We got cover crop bales, we got slew hay bales, we got hay bales. It's always the most diverse cover crop that they are going after first, and not going after and spreading it out and picking out the good stuff. They're going through and cleaning up virtually everything they can get their hands on before they even move on to touch the next bales. So I don't know if you got anything else on that topic, Connor. I know we are biased here, obviously.
I could go on about feed tests and soil tests for a long time, though, and that would
we'll
tire me out.
say,
But I understand some people look at it as like gospel, a feed test, like this is what's in the feed, and it's like, okay, and that's probably correct on a monocrop setting where the feed tests have been structured to test that monocrop. But in a diverse mixture, and even in very, very diverse hay, like every hay stand is going to be completely different. Are you really seeing what's in there? It might be a pretty rough idea, but let the cow tell you what's going on.
And adjust accordingly.
And do a supplementary test as well, so you got a few forms to look at things. But the animal and the eye test and what you're able to see by just understanding how they're consuming it is going to be so much more powerful for yourself moving forward, because it works into your grazing system in the summertime and that whole thing. Like when you have active growing plants, going to get a feed test on them to see what the feed is, well, it's going to change later that day on what that feed is testing. So
literally depending if it's cloudy or not. Is that plant photosynthesizing?
Literally. And it promotes you to be able to look at things and understand them through just viewing them and having an understanding versus solely relying on that test. But I'm not saying don't feed test anymore, use it as a tool, but just don't go about it as this is the holy grail of what my feed is.
100%. Couldn't agree more. So I think we'll roll into our next segment here. So our guest on the Connor and Joe show, our inaugural one, is Owen Taylor. So Owen was a former founder and employee of Covers & Co. He's now farming full-time in Mather, Manitoba with his family. He runs a couple hundred Angus beef cattle, black Angus beef cattle with his family and his parents. Owen's been growing cover crops. He's adapted the 𝙏𝙤𝙚 𝘎𝙝𝙤. What's the correct name for the grazing term,
Total
Connor?
grazing.
Total grazing. So Owen's just a really interesting guy. I'm looking forward to hearing his controversial hot egg take. So let's
You
get
missed
into
one thing though, Joe. He used to, a former hog producer that has recently had a dispersal of his hog business. I know it was a bit of a sore topic for Owen this fall, but the pigs had to go. So I do feel bad for them. They were a sweet spot for sure.
I've got 3 pigs running around my yard this morning. I need to have a herd dispersal. So let's get into our chat with Owen. Let's hear your hot take, and yeah, we're going to give you a couple minutes to kind of explain yourself, and then we're going to discuss. So take her away.
Okay. I have lots of people that would wholeheartedly disagree with me on this that I know, and lots that would definitely agree with me, but terminal cattle breeds should have no part of anybody's commercial cow herd in Canada, period. Meaning 𝙤𝙾, 𝙎𝙤𝙚 are the main terminal breeds that we are familiar with. They should not be in any of your commercial cows. You can use those breeds to breed commercial cattle, produce F1s and F2s, but if you own a cow, commercial cow in Canada, it should be maternal based. It should be an Angus, it should be a Hereford, it should be a Red Angus. Those are the most popular maternal breeds. Reasons being is terminal cattle are just too big. You can make maternal cows big. You can make an Angus cow 1,800 pounds. You can't make a 𝙤𝙾 cow 1,200. They're just too big. They're too hard doing. Generally, these are all kind of generalizations, but generally speaking, they can't swath graze. They can't bale graze. They just don't have the genetic capacity to it. They're too big. They have to eat too much. So I just a little math here. You guys know me well enough to know I'm not a math guy, but I'm pretty sure I got these numbers right. If you have 100 1,600-pound cows and they eat 3% of their body weight, they'll eat 48 pounds a day, each cow. 4,800 pounds for easy math every day. If you have a 1,200-pound cow, she's going to eat 36 pounds a day, right? So if your total is 4,800 pounds, divide that by 36 pounds a day. Instead of 100 1,600-pound cows, you've got 133 1,200-pound cows. You guys checking that out for me? Right?
Gotcha.
So in today's prices, I just sold calves the other day. I got 3,200, but let's just use 3,000. 33 extra cows on your exact same land base, eating the same amount, gives you 99,000 more dollars at $3,000.
Depending on what your operational costs are.
Sure. Well, that's
because you have things like vet and ear tags and medication.
Yes, of course. With 33 more cows, you do incur some more costs. Yep, absolutely.
Yep.
So yeah,
Connor, you want to roast them first, or should I? No, I'm just kidding.
Go ahead, Joe. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I do got more questions though. So the feedback I get, because obviously I run a dinky little Angus herd. I'm glad you addressed the F1 case, because Burke Tyker is somebody who I very much respect his opinion. Says the only thing that's free on the farm is hybrid vigor. So I'm assuming you're very okay with like F1 crosses. In fact, I know you at the very least used to be okay.
Yeah,
with
100% okay. I don't think that 𝙤𝙾 and 𝙎𝙤𝙚 and other terminal breeds should disappear off the face of the earth. Somebody needs to produce a purebred 𝙤𝙾 or 𝙎𝙤𝙚 bull. So commercial guy Billy Bob can go buy that 𝙎𝙤𝙚 bull, bring it back home to his Red Angus cow herd, produce F1 tan calves.
So on the F1 tan calves, in this theory, none of those get kept as replacements in your herd, though.
Absolutely correct. None of them. Yeah. If she's got terminal bloodlines in her, she should never be a cow on a commercial operation.
Connor, fire away.
Yeah, I'd maybe I completely see where you're coming from, Owen. I had followed a couple guys. One guy's from Montana, and I'm drawing a blank on his name, or Cooper Hibbard, I think is his name, actually. I've followed him on Twitter and listened to him on a few podcasts before, and he's been using mostly maternal traits, like you say, on building that cow. I think we almost live in a position I've a couple of years ago, not so much right now, but I was interested in breeding like 5 different breeds into one and trying to develop that like 5-way cross maternal cow. I think there's a position and then breeding terminal onto them afterwards, probably using a 𝙎𝙤𝙚. I think there is a position to mix in something like a 𝙤𝙾 in at a certain percentage into that cross. I think there can be some value for sure to that animal, but more or less just, I guess, looking at what type of terminal animal, like you could say, because most people will say a 𝙤𝙾 is a maternal animal. And most guys will have a Sem Angus cross animal that they call maternal. I think there can still be some room for adapting that into the animal. It's just that what percentage, like, I think I would like to see even 10-20% of that Simmental animal in that cow if there was 4 other breeds mixed in. Angus, Hereford, 𝙏𝙤𝙚, probably being in there as well. Maybe Red Angus as well. And you could, I guess, say, well, Angus is Angus. But I think there is a world where some of that can come in. And we've got a couple cows. We've got a 𝙎𝙤𝙚 bull here at home, and been very happy with what he's done on a terminal side of things. And Dad kept a heifer out of him. She was out of a very good cow, a maternal type cow, and that heifer has gone on to do exactly like her mother was, and she's half 𝙎𝙤𝙚. And it's like, well, this shouldn't be working like this. So I guess it would kind of push back at that a little bit, that I think there maybe is a world at looking at a certain percentage of that terminal animal being mixed in, because I do agree with the heterosis side of things, but just maybe watching how much of that terminal animal is into that maternal, trying to get into that maternal cow at the end of the day. Yeah, I would agree with you, but also say that I think there's definitely a fit for having some of that, whether it be a 𝙎𝙤𝙚 or Simmental, probably more than not as a percentage. But yeah, I think there's still room.
You know, it got me thinking. I spend a lot of time, hopefully not this winter, but generally I spend a lot of time on the road in the winter. I give presentations and then I sit in on as many presentations as I can. But I always hear like the beef industry experts talking about the packers wanting bigger framed animals, bigger framed animals, bigger framed animals. And I get it, right? It's kind of the same, but the opposite of what you said with the feed, whereas not necessarily feed, but like a processor, if it can do one animal that's 1,500 pounds, a 1,200 pound animal is just less efficient from that standpoint, because you got to put the same amount of work in. But what I'm confused by with that is, why don't we see it at the auction barn with weights on calves? And I'll give you an explanation that both of you I have told this to, but when we sold calves about 7 weeks ago, we calve in May and June. We weaned 107 steers. They averaged 384 pounds, and we averaged over $3,400 on those calves. Now, it was the first sale of the year, and most of the calves that were in that sale were 600 to 700 pounds. They were January calvers from, chubby 𝙎𝙤𝙚 Simmental influence. So 2 of my calves were equaling 768 pounds, and we were at a value of $6,800. And one 700 pound steer was selling for, $3,600 to $800. Same amount of weight, and yet there's $3,000 difference in that. So from a auction barn producer standpoint, the cost per pound gain above 400 pounds just isn't there. So I don't understand. I understand that the packers want bigger animals. I don't understand why that isn't trickling down to the auction barn and we aren't getting discounted on these small calves. I don't know if you guys have an answer to that, but I am so curious.
Interesting that I'm drawing a blank. It was earlier this week. Someone was talking about how they had heard that packers were pushing back because there'd been a reduction in people from buying the beef, and they thought it was directly correlated to the size of the of the steaks and whatnot. And I know like my dad sells beef off the farm, and lots of his customers are at a point where they don't want a massive steak. Like usually it's husband and wife at home and don't have kids anymore, and they're not looking for these massive steaks to eat. So it's interesting. I don't know where we're at right now, because that's what we see in the auction mart. Those lightweight animals this fall were the most profitable animal you could say to have, that had probably the least amount of time put into them, and they were bringing the highest dollar per pound. And everyone talks about, well, you sell them by the pound, and it's like, yeah, you sell them by the dollar per pound.
Yeah.
And if you can sell an animal for $8.50 a pound compared to $7 a pound, which would you rather do? I'd rather sell the higher valued one.
Well, I think something we can't.
It's interesting though.
Sorry, Connor. Something we can't forget about too is a 700 pound animal in October or November has to go to a feedlot, right? That's why those little calves are always worth a little more, because they can background them if they want. So it opens up more options for marketing. If it looks like it's a good idea come March, that it's better off to get that animal on full feed, they can do that. And if they think, geez, I don't know, we should maybe go to grass, that animal can go to grass. So that always influences little lighter calves too. Maybe not to the point in dollars you're talking about, but that does play into it. Gives more options for marketing.
Okay, so I don't disagree with you, but if you look to the graph of average cow size in Canada, it's just slowly creeping up. But my confusion is that we're not seeing any of the benefit from that. Because in
Oh, yeah,
theory,
right.
a bigger cow produces a bigger calf, but we're seeing at the auction barn cost per pound gain over 400 pounds, like has been consistently this fall at like between 25 and 50 cents. For those of you that are watching that don't know what their costs are on a cost per pound gain, you can't put a pound of gain on a calf for 25 or 50 cents. I don't know how the packers or the feedlots are putting that weight on for 25 or 50 cents. So I'm just wondering, I guess, why the incentive base is why they are not lining up. Like, again, I understand from the Packers standpoint, but what I don't understand is, why we aren't being discounted on these small calves. I know maybe it's the feedlot because they can put more weight on and they get the benefit of hedging and futures contracts and all that stuff. Surely a buyer who sits there and buys calves all day sees my 400-pound steers come through and know they will never be a 1,600-pound animal.
Yeah. And they definitely know that. They sit at the ring and they're like, okay, these are May, June-born calves. We know they're young. We know they're coming out of a small cow.
Yeah.
They understand that for sure. So I don't know and I guess the one thing I struggle with is actually, because we do that math equation there, Owen, on the 4,800 pounds versus the 3,600 pounds for that 100 cow herd in a day. I guess I struggle with actually getting down to that legitimate weight. Like there's lots of guys that'll say that the 1,050 or 1,100 pound cow is the optimum one, and it's like it's hard to get down there now because we've gotten to a point where all the cows are 1,300 to 1,400 pounds, and I don't mind a 1,300 pound cow at all, but there's lots of 1,500 pound cows in the field that you think are 1,400 pounds, but they're actually a lot heavier.
Yeah.
So I think that's another battle for lots of people. Just where we've gotten to now is legitimately getting down to that weight and then carrying more of them to be equivalent. I think that's a pure struggle for most people, like to go from that 100, 1,600 pound cows to the 133, 1,200 pound cows. I think adding those 33 more is a very big difficulty to actually achieve. I don't know though. Maybe it isn't.
I agree.
Well,
I guess I would argue, we just preg checked here yesterday. Joe was here, and I mentioned to him that our second calvers, we generally have a really good preg check on them. We had a little worse than our average. And I'd said to Joe at one point during the day, these second calvers seem bigger. Like I'd have a 5-year-old cow come in the head gate, and then behind her would be a 3-year-old cow, and she just seemed bigger. And I was lying in bed last night thinking that maybe that's because for whatever reason, the bulls we used 2 years ago, their sires were a little bigger. They didn't breed. So I think going back to you'd said using like a composite breed. I think if you put pressure, like, the swath grazing, the daily moves, the bale grazing, I think if you put pressure on a cow herd composite, the cows with the least amount of terminal blood in them will likely come through. Same as those big second calvers, more of them are open than normal. And I think maybe it's because of their size. Could be a lot of other factors too, but maybe that's why. So I think putting the pressure on, you end up with, even if you have a terminal animal, you end up with a terminal animal that's full of maternal traits. It's going to make it in that system, if that makes sense.
And what is it about like a Simmental or a Charolais? Like, I think if you rewind the clock 20 or 30 years, probably there were some massive Angus cows. In fact, I go to Agribition and I can see massive Angus cows all the time.
I think they've gotten bigger now, Joe. They were smaller.
Yeah.
They were way smaller than what they are today.
30 years ago.
Oh, I see.
Angus cows, like it's gone the opposite way. Angus cows are much bigger than they were. There's 1,800 pound Angus cows now, and those cows originally were 1,200 pounds.
So I'm not the expert on this panel, but why can't, this is probably a dumb question, why can't, and not necessarily one farm, but a group of Simmental producers or Charolais producers start focusing on smaller framed animals? Can it not be achieved over time?
I don't know if it could, just frame size to begin with. It's easier to take something small and make it big than take something big and make it small. I'm not saying it's not impossible. Like if you gave me a cow herd of 200 Fleckvieh Simmental 600 pound cows and I started treating them the same way I treat my cows, there'd be a small percentage that would stick around, that would make it.
For sure.
Would breed in 42 days. And I guess if you kept doing that, but I don't know whether you're going to find a 1,200 pound terminal. I just don't think so, but I could be wrong.
I guess that leads into the whole discussion on just putting pressure on them. And the true pressure is the breeding scenario. And when they're getting bred, I think like we've seen some, what could be a larger framed or a terminal type animal, if there's heavy pressure on them, and that being them breeding at the age of 1 and not 2, where they're actually having to work and in that initial year, that will reduce their frame size right away because they're just having to put all the groceries into staying alive and reproducing.
That's a great point.
Whereas there's no opportunity for the growth to happen. Like I think there's a world for sure where you could take your maternal Angus cow, breed her to a Simmental, take those F1 calves, and even have a higher framed Simmental animal, and then put the work on them as breeding as yearling heifers. So those F1s breeding as yearling heifers, and really push them hard, and that would reduce the frame score, definitely. Animal, if she was able to be left for that initial year and not breed when she could be, she would grow up to the frame that she's going to be regardless, because she's got that bloodline from the Simmental in her. But I think if the pressure is put on her for reproduction right away, that will stunt the growth on her for a frame side of things, just because she's just trying to survive.
Any final thoughts, though?
No, I thought you were both. I thought when I first said my take, you were both going to be like, yeah, okay, that makes sense, and we were going to be done. But no, you pushed back, and I appreciate it.
Joey,
Well, I remember a story Gabe Brown told, and I'm sure you guys probably heard it, but Gabe had a mixed commercial herd. I think he was in purebred for a bit, but when he went commercial, it was like a mixed herd, and then he implemented a system, and then the cows that didn't belong just fell out of the system, and he replaced them with animals that could. And he said there was a tall, lengthy cow, like the wind was howling underneath her, half legs, that every year when they preg checked or at calving time, he was, hoping she was going to come home open, and just never did. And finally he had to admit to himself, well, that ugly cow has done the exact same thing and existed in the exact same system as all these other cows that I really, really like. Therefore, I'm the problem, not necessarily the cow. But with that being said, I think there's a higher chance of her being pushed out, especially in a system like that. But yeah, I agree with you. Maybe like 85%. Is that enough?
That's pretty good. Yeah. Yeah. I guess my final thought.
Yeah, no, I would say I really like the question, Owen, or your statement, and I definitely see that. And I see both sides of things, I guess, too, as well on that sense. But I think there's some control that we can have in the industry, just controlling maybe having that larger frame animal and putting more pressure on them to be a smaller frame in the end of the day. And it just is a matter of, did you put hard pressure on them, or did you give them free reins to grow as large as possible?
Yeah. So, I guess my last statement will be a little caveat. If you have a commercial cow herd that's right full of terminal genetics, and no matter what you're doing, you're profitable, give her. Like, it's all about profit at the end of the day. I just think, I think I know that if you have more maternal genetics in your cow herd, your chances of being more profitable are greatly increased.
And I guess my biggest argument, which I think we need to take advantage of, is it's just easier to scale. If you've got one, you're running similar types of bulls and you've got a uniform herd, you're just going to have less animals that are falling out of that, because you've developed a system that's going to work. Okay, so this is a section we're going to do a short market report at the end of the Connor and Joe show. So because Owen just sold calves, we thought we'd keep him on to just see if this reflected what he saw. So basically what we're looking at is the data from Lloydminster sale last week. And then we did some handy things. We punched it into AI and we're able to get changes in classes of livestock. There's also total averages on there for each class. So, I know you were sold a class of livestock on this page. Is this what you were seeing in Killarney last week?
Yeah, I was just doing a little bit of math here. I've got our sale settlement paper here. 400-pound steers were definitely down. We had a group of 13 of them that averaged 403, and we actually got $2,900, so less than 3,000, which would line up exactly with that, right? Down, yeah, I can't see that great. Down 3.2%.
Yep.
And then,
and I guess we should say we have the data from last week as well, and this was all red last week.
Yeah.
Like smaller calves were discounted, like they were down 10%.
Yeah. So when I saw the market way off a week ago Monday, I was I wasn't going to pull my calves out, but I was disappointed, obviously, because I sold too early last year and I was going to sell too late this year. But I was watching the sale from St. Rose last Thursday, a week ago, and it had came back up, and the market on Monday in Killarney was just kind of right there with it, maybe a little higher. So, but yeah.
Connor, what do you
400-pound calves were off for sure.
Yeah, I guess look at the difference between those 3 to 4 weight steers. $732 worth of value difference between 100 pounds. So even if you can go at like a pound and a half a day gain on those animals, be about 66 days on feed at $11 a day gain. So how much does it cost you to put that £1.50 of gain on? You've got $11 they're paying you right there.
Yeah, and back from this, the what I was talking about just 10 minutes earlier when we sold our calves, how tight that spread was between a 400-pound steer and a 600-pound steer. It seems to be that there is some opportunity on the cost per pound gain between those classes now. So I would say this is volatile as all hell. Like, who knows what next week is going to bring, but this this is what I would say would be more normal in the difference in values between classes.
And it's just so crazy, like how tight that 5 to 6 weight range is. It's like, if you've got a 5 weight, what's the point in taking them to 6? You're playing with very little dollar values where that 3 to 4 is massive right now. Just on that, generally. Pretty cool.
Beauty. So this was all over the map 2 weeks ago. Same exact sales, same data. I think I told both you guys this 2 weeks ago when Keegan ran this data. So this is every calf that's sold in Lloyd, and then we used AI to break it into different classes and the total value. So 2 weeks ago in Lloyd, a 350-pound heifer was selling for more money on the average, $4 more than a 550-pound heifer. So at that time, there was nothing to be made as far as weight gain on heifers. Curious your thoughts, Connor. Maybe you want to take a stab first, just opportunity, either buying or selling on this heifer class.
Yeah, that seems pretty. Once again, it's that light class from 300 to 400, and like even at that £1.50 day gain, which I think is very achievable for most farmers. Feedlots would probably push a higher rate of gain on that, but you're playing with quite a bit of like $12.50 a day on 66 days just to go from that 1900 to 2700. And I mean, it's maybe there was only 37 head at 300. There was double that on the 4 weight. So it might be a little hard to say on just what the quality was, but that's a massive spread there for sure.
Well, and I'm just looking at this, looking at my own operation and wondering, we lost 2 300-pound calves that were in the corral this week. Is there a correlation between what the weather has done and people's appetite for bringing a 300-pound heifer into a corral?
Totally. Yeah, those laid out, you need to look after them so much more. Like they've got to have shelter and good water and be warm. That's probably the biggest thing. So yeah.
Well, this is getting a little farther. Sorry, just getting a little farther out. But like for a guy like me that's going to be buying heifers to breed come January, I don't mind a 450 or 500-pound heifer, but I got to get her in. She's got to stay healthy. I need to feed her okay. She's got to be able to breed on July 16th. You know, maybe like a 300-pound heifer is just too small for anybody hoping to breed them. Maybe that puts a little more pressure. It takes those guys out of the market, maybe. Just a thought.
Well, I was just going to say, like all fall, I've been looking at like heavy heifers, just how much they were discounted. Like there was absolutely no difference between a 400 and a 600-pound heifer, but I'm looking 700-pound heifers were up 15% damn near last week. Is that just guys that are looking at tax issues at the end of the year that are thinking, hey, I can buy a 700-pound heifer, throw a bull out with her on the 15th of March and maybe sell bred heifers next spring?
Well, I guess another one
this fall.
Another one looking here, and I know there were very few animals, but at that 8 weight range, you might as well just coast an 8 weight instead of buying the 5 weight.
For sure. Yeah.
Difference. Like how much easier, I mean, there was 13 animals. That's a lot different than if there had been 300 of them. I think we would have seen a better correlation of the price, but that would be interesting to look more in depth on that. And just, could you coast that bigger animal, still breed her when you want to breed her, rather than having to buy that smaller animal that's harder to look after and needing weight to be gained on them more than anything.
Yeah.
Interesting to look at that for sure.
Any final thoughts on the market report, guys?
Anything to see what bred heifers are bringing here in the next couple of weeks. There's a big sale in Verdun tomorrow. There's a lot of bred heifers on the market right now, and I do not know where they're all going, and it's going to be very interesting to see what ends up happening with them.
Maybe your place.
Maybe. It won't be calving in the winter, I'll tell you how much.
Are any of those spring calving heifers at that sale?
April, but is that spring?
Some years, yeah.
Call that winter.
Some years it's very much still winter.
That's winter at my place.
Fair enough.
April.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thanks for coming on. We're going to try again same time next week. Thanks everyone for coming.
See you guys.